Hey, you beautiful souls. So I'm going to do it. I am going to tell you how I took myself from a near-death experience, which wasn't my low spot, to crying on the floor, literally not wanting to take another breath into my lungs, to achieving things that I didn't even know were possible at the time. And then I'm going to tell you why I know you can do the same thing as well. To anybody who's never been here before, hi, my name's Elizabeth Blackwell, and I have spent well over a decade of my life so that I can help others set sacred space and find their highest and greatest self. So let's get into this transformative journey. So I told myself that I would put this video out there when I hit 1,000 subscribers. I just didn't expect it to be less than a month later. But the reason that I am putting this video out there is because I want to prove to you that no matter what your situation is, if you have breath in your lungs, that you can change your life for the better. And I am absolutely proof of that. So I've been trying to figure out how to start this video so that it doesn't take 9 hours. So I figured I would just give you some of the highlights of how I got to where I was. And so I figured I'd start with the first day that changed my life, and not for the better, which was I was in a car accident. I was pretty young. I was about 18, and I was doing my undergrad for nursing. And I was actually the youngest bridal consultant in the state of Illinois. And that was back when you could still lie about your age. But I was in this car accident, which by no means from the outside looked like it was really bad, but it left me with some pretty severe damage within my neck and upper spine. In fact, to this day, my shoulders still don't sit quite right. If I need to take photos or anything like that, I just pull this side up. But that was the start of my journey into chronic pain, which just went downhill from there. So that derailed some of my earlier plans. So then I moved to Detroit following a man. And shortly later, I found out I was expecting my first son, first true love of my life. And I was blessed with an amazing little boy. And then in between having that son and my second son, I found out that I had some cardiac issues. In fact, I was in the ER with some arrhythmias and cardiac issues when I found out I was pregnant with my second son. So I went on to have him, and he had some lung immaturity, but has grown into a bright, beautiful young man who is striving and doing well. So then we as a family moved to South Lake Tahoe, California for his career. And that was the beginning of me really not doing very well. I was struggling with my place in life. I didn't have a lot of outside stimulation, and I was just struggling. And then I fell into the hands of some really bad doctors. So I really don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to hit the highlights here. But I was basically one of the early statistics in the opioid epidemic. I fell into some doctors. They put me on pain medication. And then I found out that I was pregnant with my third child and my only daughter. And this is a little over 16 years ago. And so they moved some things around and to get me through her pregnancy. But about 2/3 of the way through her pregnancy, I knew there was something off. I knew there was something not right. I was super swollen. I couldn't get a deep breath. And I just knew there was something not right. So about 2 weeks before she was born, I got violently ill. And I was throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. So of course they put you in the hospital because they don't want it to induce labor. And they got the sickness under control. But while I was there, I mentioned to the nurse, like, I'm having a really hard time getting a deep breath. And so she puts the monitors on me, and she was in contact with the doctor overnight. I don't know what happened. I don't even want to try to figure out what that point was. But he comes in the morning and he throws a bunch of tests at me. They did a chest x-ray and they're ultrasounding my legs, looking for clots and things like that. But he basically comes in a few hours later and he tells me it's all in my head, that they couldn't figure out why my O2 stats were going down. So I just kind of went along with it. Like, maybe it is in my head, whatever, you're carrying a lot of baby weight. So I went home. And 2 weeks later, my daughter was born. And she was little, but she was healthy. She was only about 5 pounds. But then I went home with her, and I was trying to nurse her, but I still couldn't lay back. And so I convinced myself that I was just having panic attacks. Like, you just had a baby, your hormones are all over the place, you're just having panic attacks. And so I got about 5 days into it. She was actually born the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. This was the following Monday. And so I laid down with my, that time, 5-day-old newborn and my 3-year-old son on the other side of me. And I woke up a month later, intubated, which is where there's a tube down your throat and a machine breathing for you, in the hospital. And so what had happened was, even though the doctors couldn't identify it, they should have been able to identify it apparently just from the chest x-ray. But I had something called a perimortem cardiac myopathy, which was, I think I just completely mispronounced that word. But basically, the pregnancy had damaged my heart so significantly that it couldn't pump properly, and I was slowly drowning in my own body fluids. And so when I laid down, that my O2 stats were so low and my heart went so bad that it was 2 life flights. I went through the full near-death experience to where they couldn't get me back. They got me back. But as far as my recognition went, I went from laying down with my newborn and my son to in the hospital a month later, not knowing why. So I am an absolute mess. They put me on all of these cardiac meds, and then I am back with this group of doctors that puts me on all of these narcotic medications. And then I move. And I actually moved to Boston, and that was an absolute nightmare. I was there during the Boston bombing. It was horrific. And so shortly after that, I moved back to Central Illinois. And I hit this point where I'm like, I'm going to die for real, fully this time, if I don't pull this together. So to get into the circumstances would take way too long. But it was bad. Bad, bad, bad. And I was laying on the floor, knowing that if I stuck down this road, that I was going to die. And for a while, I considered it. If it hadn't been for my 3 children, I would have ended up a statistic. But I was pretty much solo in taking care of the 3 children at the time. Their dad was working out of a separate city and things like that. And so while laying on the floor, barely having enough breath in my lungs to stand up, let alone take care of the 3 children that I was pretty much the sole caretaker of, I made a decision. And it was, I am going to get up off of this floor, and I am going to make my life so much better that I will be thankful for this moment. And that was exactly what I did. And this is the first time that I'm going to call you out, which is to say, no matter what circumstances you are in, you need to make that decision that you're going to make a change, and then start within that direction. So I made the decision, and I went off all narcotics, And then I slowly weaned down off of all of my cardiac meds because they couldn't even tell me why I was on what and things like that. And so by no means am I telling anybody to go off of medications. This was just how I chose to do it. So I went through horrible withdrawals. And that was when I found meditation, initially just to help me sleep. But then that helped me to also go within. And back when I was in South Lake Tahoe, I had actually met a Native American woman who had introduced me to the idea of cleansing a space. And I was invited to a few things with those individuals. But yet, I wasn't in a place where I could take that knowledge to do anything with it. So then all of that came back up when I was on this internal journey to heal myself. So from the moment that I picked myself up off of that floor, and I told myself that I wanted to give purpose to all of that pain that I went through. And then I started to study everything that I could to strengthen myself. And that was herbalism and holistic health, spirituality and best self practices, which led me to quantum physics and why there was a change and all of that sort of stuff. And then that led me into understanding of goals. And I am a multiple triathlon finisher, multiple ultra marathon finisher, finishing up, and I am a 2-time 100-mile ultra marathon finisher. But all of that was my journey and how I decided to get there. That doesn't have to be that way for you. So from that moment on the floor to here in front of you as a successful business owner, a mother of 3 children who are thriving and very successful, and then now somebody who is putting all of this knowledge of the last decade, as well as the pain prior to that, out there to help change the world for the better. What is it that I can tell you that can help you change your life for the better? I'm not saying it's easy, but I do think it comes down to 3 main thoughts, which is 1, perspective. When you choose to place a purpose to all of the positive as well as the negative in your life, it then helps to lead me to number 2, which is power. That you have the power to change anything you want to in your life. If you refuse to take that victim mentality, that you say, no, I will make a choice here, then it helps to lead to number 3, which is where you take responsibility for all of those actions to lead you to the positive side of life and make any change that you wish to make. So I know that you can take any situation and turn it for the better because I've done it. And there's a lot that I haven't shared in this video, mainly for time's sake. But this channel is all about taking the knowledge that I have built over the well over last decade of what has worked in my life to take me to my higher self, to hopefully help others find their highest and greatest self. So with that, I will say that I am sending you all so much light and love, and I hope you all stay well, my friends.